We see Camelot at a time that's, I suppose, pre the sort of familiar myth, pre the stories, the familiar stories that everyone's kind of aware of, sort of grows up knowing. We start with Merlin and Arthur in their younger years, where we sort of see the process of what they go through to become the men that we know that they're going to become. Their relationship is a little bit tetchy at first.
I'll have to throw in jail for that. Well, who do you think you are, the king?
They get off on completely the wrong foot and find themselves having a strong dislike for each other.
I thought you were deaf as well as dumb.
Look, I've told you you're an ass. I just didn't realise you were a royal one.
So it gives you that platform of coming from absolutely nothing to build up the relationship from. And slowly but surely through the series, they kind of learn a lot more about each other and learn that the value of each other is more than they first had anticipated.
I'm going back to Ealdor.
Of course.
It's been an honour serving you.
You'll be coming back.
Well, she's my mother. I've got to look after her before anyone else. You understand?
I do exactly the same.
I read the first script and I laughed quite a lot through it because I could sort of relate to the sort of schoolboy jokes and tactics and sort of lads' behaviour.
I could take you apart with one blow.
I could take you apart with less than that.
Are you sure? Here you go, big man.
It's not sort of a straightforward, likeable role. I imagine the first few episodes, people will probably watch it and go, "Who is this pillock?" And rightly so. Hopefully that'll give me somewhere to go. It'll give me a bit of a challenge to see if I can get people to like the character eventually, which I think is what the producers intend.
Ask the neighbouring kingdoms for help. They may be able to spare some food.
Out of the question. As soon as they realize how weak we are, our enemies would strike against us.
You don't know that.
Besides, I would rather starve than beg my enemies for help. What of our kingdom's reputation? Have you no pride?
There's always that aspect of him having, his father on one side who has a very sort of militant, tyrannous kind of view on things, and then there's Morgana on another side who's, whinging in his ear every 5 minutes about, something that's not right with the world.
That was some tournament final.
Tell me about it. It's not every day a girl gets to save her prince.
I wouldn't say I needed exactly saving. I'm sure I would have thought of something.
So you're too proud to admit you were saved by a girl?
Because I wasn't.
Quite like that sort of the different relationships and how they affect his decisions, and eventually he always ends up doing the right thing.
I do not yet know there is worse to come.
What do you mean?
My father is going to stop distributing food to the people. They are to be left to starve.
I think when it comes down to it, Arthur does have a moral code and knows what's right. With regards to myself and Colin, we didn't sort of start off on the wrong foot, but there was kind of a bit of a settling period where we didn't really know each other that well, and it kind of worked in our favour with regards to the show. And I couldn't understand half of what he was saying when I first met him. I was nonplussed for every third word he said. I sort of lost it. And also he has this very odd sense of humour which I just didn't get for a while, and I just kind of would end conversations talking to him, sort of scratching my head, wondering what we just spoke about. But as time's gone on, it turns out he's a very funny chap. He's very quick-witted, and he's once you sort of I've managed to sort of hone into his sense of humour now. We spent that much time together. That I suddenly find myself laughing at these jokes that I would have not really have got beforehand, and now sort of because I've tuned into his humour, I'm finding it very funny. I did the audition and I really wanted to get the part. It was sort of like a dream role, but when I found out, I kind of had a bit of a subdued kind of, oh, that's nice kind of thing about it. And I think I just went into a complete state of shock because my flatmate was bouncing around the flat and sort of began to ring every person he'd ever met. I just sort of sat there and went and made a cup of tea, probably. Some of the studio work at the beginning can be a bit daunting because you're having to create the fourth wall of what's there in place of the camera. I think the team have done a really good job of creating the world. It's made it very easy to sort of submerge yourself in it and just enjoy yourself and have fun and you know, commit yourself to where you are. We film in this castle in France, and this castle is amazing. I sort of had a bit of practice at that. At drama school, would do these odd classes where you'd talk to no one. So when it came to fighting a blue bag that's supposed to be a griffin or a serpent or something, I kind of had a bit of experience in that field. And you can have a lot of fun, you know, you're sort of given free rein almost with you know, how you're going to take it on, and you sort of give it its own personality, I suppose. So it's something I think you acquire. I don't think you can kind of come to it and go, right, I know exactly what I'm doing, but you know, the more you do, the easier it gets. Gwen is a servant, starts off as a servant within Camelot. Arthur doesn't look at her twice, doesn't even know she exists. And so it gives it, again, that sort of platform for it to go somewhere, because it's got such a long journey to go before he even notices her. I think at the early stages there's no relationship to speak of other than she's a servant within his kingdom, and from Arthur's behalf, he doesn't even know she's there. She's you know, she fancies everybody. Lancelot turns up and she fancies him, and you know, you name it, she fancies them basically. So she thinks Knight Valiant's quite fit when he turns up. She's like, oh, he's nice.
So, come on. Just for the sake of argument, if you had to, Arthur or Lancelot?
But I don't have to, and I never will.
Oh, you are no fun, Gwen.
I got on really well with Santiago. We both went to the same drama school. He was 4 years above me, so he'd left by the time I got there. But we had a lot to talk about quite early on, and also we have this insane passion for football, which we both share. And so we had a lot to talk about early on, which you know, enabled us to build quite a firm bond. Lancelot, he has to prove himself to Arthur. I think that's a familiar theme quite often with Arthur, is people have to prove themselves. And in Lancelot, he finds someone who is on that same level with him as a warrior, as a person. I think that's quite a relief for Arthur to know that the weight of the kingdom won't entirely rest on his shoulders.
So, Valiant, you think you stand a chance of defeating my son?
He is a great warrior, my lord. I do hope to be a worthy opponent.
Will Mellor, he was actually the first person I met because we had to do some fight rehearsals, and he was a lot of fun to have around. I found him very funny, because my preconception, I thought, oh God, I don't know if I'm going to get on with this guy. And I met him, and he was great. He was you know, very easy, very accessible as a person to talk to about things, and you know, he was very quick to make jokes about himself as well as others, and he sort of lightened the mood. And doing the fight rehearsals as well, he really went for it, which I think in turn allowed me to really go for it as well. So I think it really boosted what we got out of that, so, and made it more fun, because you want to go for it. You don't want to be holding back and worrying too much about health and safety. Favourite scene? I reckon one of my favourites will probably be in episode 4, when I'm climbing a wall on the inside of a cave and being chased by giant spiders. That's sort of one of those scenes that you kind of imagine yourself doing when you're 6 or 7 years old and you're, you know, running around in the back garden pretending to be a knight or a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, as it was in my case.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for everything.
You had Gaius drug me. I was meant to fight him.
No, you weren't.
But the Knight's Code is
Be
very...
damned. I believed you would die, and that was a risk I could not take. You are too precious to me.
I don't know if he'd say the same thing, but I really like having him around. I think he kind of has to put up with me annoying him throughout most of the day. He has this sort of begrudging generosity towards me, where he's kind of like, I'll always pinch his Nintendo DS and start playing on that and beat all his high scores, which annoys him profusely.
I'll show you footwork.
He's been great. I've certainly benefited from watching him in action as well, because he's so experienced. I try and push to do as much as possible. I think I've hopefully proved myself with a sword, so they let me do quite a bit of the sword work, which I'm quite pleased about. You know, I'll get asked about a few things and they'll say, do you think you could do that? I go, yeah, of course I think I can do that. And then there'll be some things that they just won't let me do. And I'll sit there and whinge for sort of half an hour and realise it won't do any good and have to watch the stuntmen having all the fun. But, you know, there's quite a bit of stuff we managed to get away with, so I'm quite pleased about that, because I think it's probably what they pay me for, as opposed to the actual acting itself. Is just the enjoyment I get out of doing the stunts. I think, yeah, we'll hire him for that reason. He seems to be quite good at that. I think I'm an actor in a stuntman's body, so I kind of see the stunts and go, yes, let's, you know, I want to do that. That looks great. It's certainly been a huge event in my life. It's got all the ingredients to be something quite special, and hopefully it will be.